This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China takes another successful step forward in its space program with the launch of its new generation carrier rocket, the Long March 5B. Coronavirus confirmed cases top 3.6 million globally, while more than 250,000 people have died from the virus. And in our installment of coronavirus impact in Africa, today we highlight how the pandemic is affecting livelihoods. You're watching Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe. A warm welcome to the show. Also with me in studio is Rama with the day's business headlines.
That's right, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Commercial activities coming back to life in Nigeria's commercial capital after a 28-day lockdown. And authorities in Tunisia acting to stem a rapid rise in food prices during the month of Ramadan. We'll have the details of those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. Another step forward in China's ambitious space program. Today, it launched its largest carrier rocket yet, the Long March 5B. It carried a new type of spacecraft, helping the country move closer to its goal of building its own space station. Our reporter Ning Huang has more.
China has written another successful chapter in its space exploration pursuits. The success of the mission marks the beginning of the third step of China's manned space program, building a space station.
The success of the mission has laid a solid foundation for China's three-step development strategy for its manned space program. It has strengthened the confidence and determination of people who will be participating in the space industry. According to the plan, the construction of the Chinese space station will be completed in 2022. Chinese people will take more stable steps and go further in exploring the universe.
From its appearance, the Long March 5B rocket is nearly 54 meters in height, about the size of an 18-story building. It has the biggest boost power in the Long March 5 series and could deliver no less than 22 tons of payload at a time to low Earth orbits.
The Long March 5B rocket will directly enter designated orbit with only a single burst of engines. When the first stage engine shuts down, about 140 tons of thrust disappear in a matter of seconds, like a high-speed train suddenly braking and stopping steadily at the designated position.
The rocket carried a new generation of manned spacecraft test ships and a test module of flexible inflatable cargo return capsule. With an inverted cone ship, not only is the 20-ton spaceship bigger and heavier than the original Shenzhou spaceship, the elegant design and appearance reflects how advanced it is, and reflects the development of China's space engineering over the past decade.
The new spaceship is safer, more reliable, more economical and adaptable to various missions. The innovations we made are the goals we focused on.
The test spaceship has also adopted a new navigation system. It will correct errors of re-entry paths in real time, and a new thermal isolation material which is lighter but offers better performance. And it is changeable as well. The test spaceship will return to Earth on Friday. Ning Hong, CGTN, Beijing.
Officials from the China Manned Space Engineering Office said the successful launch served as a tremendous confidence booster after a couple of failed attempts earlier this year.
The launch of Long March 5B rocket not only shows we're on our way to building a space station, but it also serves as a turning point and brings confidence to future missions.
The official added that one of the payloads on the rocket, the cargo capsule, is scheduled to return on Wednesday. More details were provided on where China's space station mission would go from here. 3 more capsules will be launched in future missions that will form the main body of the space station. China has already started training the astronauts for these missions. In Liberia, dozens of miners are feared dead after mudslides hit two mining sites in the gold-rich Grand Cape Mount County. The incident took place in the northwestern towns of Masakpa and Bamgoma. There has been conflicting reports from local authorities on the death toll. One report says 2 bodies have been recovered, while another says that number is at least 45. The victims were reportedly involved in illegal mining activities. Liberia has recorded a number of mudslides in recent years due to heavy rains. Now let's get the latest on COVID-19. Confirmed cases worldwide are over 3.6 million. More than 250,000 people have died from the virus, but 1 million others have recovered. A third of the world's cases are in the United States. It reported more than 1,000 new deaths over the last 24 hours, the lowest figure in a month. Nearly half of the world's infections are in Europe. Spain has seen the most with 218,000 cases. United Kingdom has now overtaken Italy with the highest death toll on the continent. It's reporting over 32,000 deaths, just second to the US. Turkey's confirmed cases are now at 127,000. The Chinese mainland on Monday reported 1 new infection, an imported case, and 15 new cases of people who are asymptomatic. Here in Africa, of 54 countries, only Lesotho is yet to report a case of COVID-19. There are now over 47,000 confirmed infections on the continent, including about 15,500 recoveries and 1,800 deaths. In Kenya, 45 more people have tested positive for the disease. Nigeria, on the other hand, recorded its highest single-day infection rate of the virus on the day it began a phase-out period of emergency lockdown measures. Over 200 cases were confirmed by the Center for Disease Control on Monday. The update came a few hours after the government relaxed restrictions in 3 major states that were under lockdown for more than 4 weeks. In Tanzania, the head of the National Health Laboratory has been suspended after President John Magufuli questioned the accuracy of tests being conducted. Meanwhile, several African countries have ordered a herbal tonic from Madagascar, said to be a possible cure for the coronavirus. Guinea-Bissau and Equatorial Guinea have already received shipments. However, the World Health Organization has urged caution against promoting traditional remedies as cures for COVID-19 without subjecting them to rigorous scientific testing. Egypt has sent 4 military planes loaded with medical supplies to Sudan. This is in response to shortages Khartoum is facing in medicines and protective gear necessary to confront the coronavirus. The move underscores the strong ties between the two countries. In Sudan, more than 600 people have been infected and 41 have died from COVID-19. Meanwhile, Egypt has sent several shipments of medical aid to some of the world's worst-hit countries. Now, CGTN's Adel Mahroui joins us live from Cairo for more on this. Adel, what more can you tell us about Egypt's medical supplies to Khartoum?
Well, it's the first supply of it's the first aid that Egypt sends to a neighboring country. Sudan is one of the strategic allies to Egypt, and once the numbers have been recently significantly growing in Sudan, as reported by Khartoum, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi was keen to send supplies as soon as possible. As you've mentioned, 4 aircrafts, military aircrafts, have landed and sent what is described as the first batch of supplies. And according to the Egyptian ambassador in Khartoum, what Egypt sent is basically everything that is needed to face COVID-19. So it has testing gears, it has rapid tests, it has facilities and equipment needed for laboratories and blood work, as well as it has medication, recovery and preventive gears, face masks, full body suits and protective measures for people and for the medical staff in Sudan. Egypt wants to give as much support as possible for its southern neighbor and share some of the experience that it has already experienced and went through during the pandemic, as Egypt has been the first country to report cases in Africa. And as I said, this is the first batch, and there is expectations that further assistance will come. And the step also has a significant political effect, as recently tension has been rising between Egypt and Sudan over the Grand Renaissance Dam. But with this political move, we've seen one of the members of the Sovereign Council in Sudan has praised Egypt's move and re-strengthened the confidence that the two countries have together.
And Adel, Egypt has begun COVID-19 clinical trials. What's the status of those trials?
Well, Egypt has been moving in several aspects. For weeks, it has been moving in several trials. Since June 30th, the country has declared that it will move forward with clinical trials and have been trying some of the medications previously known and have been recently showing strong effect on the cure process and the treatment of COVID-19. The country has been also moving in the race, trying to join the global race to form a vaccine for the virus. So it's the first time that Egypt takes a very quick and immediate move in terms of scientific research. I've been researching also furthermore about the exact details. Let's have a listen in this report.
Since March 30th, Egypt has begun clinical trials to test existing medicines to treat COVID-19. By the first week of April, Cairo University, the biggest in the country, formed 5 research teams to join the global race for a vaccine. In mid-April, the university has also announced reaching a treatment protocol which uses 2 antiviral drugs. One interferes with the viral replication and the other strengthens immunity. The protocol awaits the health ministry's approval.
The most important development in Egypt under the pandemic is the greater move towards scientific research. That wasn't evident in the past few years. Egypt has joined trials and research efforts with many international partners, including the World Health Organization, hoping to join the efforts to find a cure.
A common approach to almost all COVID-19 patients in Egypt is nutrition, through which patients follow a healthy diet that aims to boost their immunity.
In quarantine hospitals, there is a strict nutrition program. The main purpose is to cure patients in the least possible time. If they can decrease the treatment period by 4 days, they'll free space for future patients. Due to the limited number of hospital beds available. If we exceed 13,000 cases, there will be crisis because we don't have enough space to treat them.
Egypt is also testing the effectiveness of medicines like Japan's Avigan and Remdesivir, which is used for critical cases. The country is also using plasma transfusion from recovered to sick patients. As an active member of the AU and the Africa CDC, Egypt is committed to cooperate, share capabilities and knowledge in the fight against COVID-19. It has one of the strongest healthcare systems in the continent, and that puts more regional responsibilities on it under the pandemic. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, the health ministry has issued the latest infection updates just less than an hour ago, and it has reported the biggest daily infections yet since Egypt has first reported COVID-19 cases. 388 new cases were reported today, the highest ever so far. It has also confirmed the death of 16 new cases in the process. This is above the daily average that Egypt has been reporting throughout the past 2 months. And in general, that raises up the number of total death casualties from the virus to 452 cases so far. And the general total number of infections confirmed is 7,201. And the numbers seems to be growing alarmingly, but still within the expectations that the government has been expecting. And finally, 1,730 patients have been declared cured and left the quarantine, left the hospitals safely back home, while the general number of those have started to test negative for COVID-19 is more than 2,200.
All right, Adel, thank you for that update. Adel Mahroui live in Cairo. Nigeria's government says plans are underway to disinfect all schools nationwide before allowing them to reopen. Authorities say it's part of measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Our correspondent Phil Ihaza reports from Abuja.
The Minister of Environment, Mohammed Mahmoud, says the plan to disinfect and decontaminate schools is geared towards making schools safe before permitting them to reopen. Mahmoud says officials have been finalizing plans for the disinfection exercise due to begin in the coming weeks and that the specific date will be communicated soon. Despite the government easing restrictions this week, all primary, secondary and tertiary learning institutions remain shut. The government is encouraging schools to adopt e-learning and remote teaching in the interim while it completes its ongoing work of gathering data for schools nationwide for the exercise. The Environment Minister says the government is also working together with representatives from all 36 states and the federal capital, Abuja, as well as officials from the World Health Organization to ensure the exercise is carried out effectively. President Muhammadu Buhari's administration says it is working hard to manage the COVID-19 outbreak and also curb further spread with initiatives like this. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Meanwhile, South Sudan's Health Ministry has discharged 2 people who recovered from the coronavirus. The ministry says the country currently has 52 confirmed cases and it's carrying out more tests. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
Karaba Juma is a driver for the first person diagnosed with the coronavirus in South Sudan. Being a driver of the first patient, Karaba was tested and the result was positive. Karaba said he developed a cough, difficulty in breathing and general body weakness. He was isolated and underwent treatment. After 25 days, medical personnel here say he has now tested negative 3 times and he is free to go back home.
I thank all those that treated me here. I ask God to help them and help this country. I urge those who suspect that they've contracted the coronavirus to come forward. There are people saying the government is burning all those that test positive for COVID-19. It's a lie. I was at this hospital and I've been treated well. Who is burning people?
However, South Sudan's health ministry says its facilities cannot yet accommodate all those who test positive for COVID-19. It says those that are asymptomatic are quarantined in their homes. But there are reports that some people who tested positive are not following the stay-home order.
They are mobile because they lack certain basic things in their homes. Food, water, electricity. And this will trigger some of them always to leave the house and go outside. But has been raised at higher level to address this situation.
Karaba Juma says his main goal now as he goes home is to follow the health ministry's guidelines to avoid potential reinfection.
Many here now fear that there could be a wider spread of COVID-19 in the country. The government says it will maintain the current partial lockdown and curfew indefinitely, but that it still doesn't see any reason for going for a total lockdown to contain the spread of the coronavirus. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Uganda has reported no deaths since its first case of the coronavirus in March, and more than 50 people have been discharged from hospitals after recovering. Our correspondent Leon Senyanga spoke to one survivor who shared his experience.
Emmanuel Safali knows what it's like to be a COVID-19 patient. After returning home to Uganda from a trip to the United Arab Emirates last March, he underwent tests. While he felt okay, his results said otherwise when he tested positive.
An ambulance came here around 10 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock. The doctor comes in. He was dressed normally. He said, I'd come to pick me. I said, what? I said, but I tested. He said, no, they want you.
Safali has completed his days in isolation after being discharged from hospital.
For the first 3 to 7 days, we're not getting any, apart from those vitamin C, okay? Then later on, they started checking on my diabetes, which I've managed for the last 20 years.
With older people more at risk from the coronavirus, his family feared the worst.
We are very, very worried. Very worried, because we had seen there abroad how people were dying in Italy, in America. How about Uganda?
While doctors described Safali's condition as mild, He says it is his own resolve that saw him through.
I was very strong. In myself, I thought I didn't have. But I said in case it came and just grappled me at once, what would happen?
But the steps to recovery were encouraging. Safali was given a clean bill of health sooner than expected. He is now home and wants to work on the construction of his new house.
My biggest worry is the project I had started on, this one, the building one. That was my biggest worry. I had embarked on it. Bank had given me some money. And this is, I started in February. Now I was worried if I died. If COVID took its toll and I didn't complete this, it would be a havoc.
Safali has completed his days in isolation. He says he cannot wait to get back to business. It's been quite a moment in life for Safali. He and other COVID-19 survivors here have been sharing their experiences. Those who have made it through are giving others hope. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
This is Africa Live, coming up after this short break. In our installment of coronavirus impact in Africa, today we highlight how the pandemic is affecting livelihoods.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
And now to our continuing series on the impact of the coronavirus on the African continent. Today, we're focusing on how the crisis has affected livelihoods as well as efforts that are being made to help vulnerable communities. Aid agencies operating in South Sudan have launched a program that provides information about the coronavirus to the vulnerable groups they support. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
Hassan Konyi lives in a refugee camp near Juba known as Don Bosco. Getting correct information on COVID-19 here is difficult. Most residents don't have access to news via television or radio. Hassan has been educated about coronavirus and preventive measures by a non-governmental organization, World Vision. That means Hassan can now pass on that knowledge to other residents.
Everybody is now staying at home because they are listening to the information we are giving them about the coronavirus. Before we started this awareness campaign, people were not following the directives from the health ministry to avoid social functions. They were not even staying home. But that has changed now.
The stay-home directive is affecting many workers who used to depend on daily income to feed their families.
I have no job now. I am just sitting at home. All work has stopped. I am worried. The little money I have saved is finished.
The World Food Programme says more than half the South Sudan's population of 11 million people were already food insecure before restrictions were put in place to contain the spread of the coronavirus.
There are changes. The changes is that previously we used to provide the beneficiaries one-man ratio, but because of these changes, for fear of COVID-19, we don't know what will it happen, when will it happen. So we have decided to give 2 months ratio for our beneficiaries.
South Sudan's health ministry has launched a door-to-door campaign in the capital, Juba, to give the public information on coronavirus.
Aid agencies say they want to carry out sensitization on the coronavirus across the country wherever they take services to the needy. The government has declared an indefinite partial lockdown, so it is not clear how long the vulnerable people will be facing these extra challenges in their daily lives. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
A group of sign language interpreters in Tunisia have volunteered to translate the state's coronavirus measures for people with hearing impairment. There are concerns that these individuals may feel isolated and neglected during the lockdown period. CGTN's Adner Shawashi has that story from Tunis.
Shaima is a 26-year-old volunteer who's translating the daily press conference of the Ministry of Health to the deaf and hearing impaired. She's been explaining the prevention measures and the latest data on the contamination, as well as the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic.
We cannot leave anyone isolated or without information on the coronavirus because it's a threat to public health. I translate for thousands of people on TV channels so that they get informed on the latest news. Hence, they can protect themselves.
Noor is a deaf student. She's married to a hearing-impaired person. The couple follows Shaima's translation on social media to understand what is happening in the country during the general lockdown.
It was very difficult to follow the news. My husband and I were completely disconnected from the world when the pandemic began. But thanks to the effort of volunteers who are translating and sharing videos, we are aware of everything.
Noor says she feels safe by following the health ministry's recommendations. She believes that the initiative of translating the official news on coronavirus should be encouraged and generalized so that the vulnerable people are adequately catered for.
Now I know exactly what I must do to protect myself, like washing my hands, avoiding contact and other measures. I just hope that all citizens with other disabilities will also get a similar treatment.
According to the Ministry of Health and the National Observatory on New and Emerging Diseases, disability alone may not be related to higher risk for becoming infected with coronavirus or having severe illness. Tunisian universities are the only higher educational institutions to teach sign language in the Arab region. Civil society activists hope that all deaf and hearing impaired individuals in the world will have access to timely and updated information about coronavirus. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
As the world tackles the COVID-19 crisis, governments are trying to support their citizens, especially those hardest hit by lockdowns. In South Africa, the government has distributed thousands of water tanks countrywide to ensure adequate water supply during the lockdown. CGTN's Yulisa Njamela reports from Johannesburg.
South Africa is a water-scarce country, and the coronavirus pandemic comes at a time when the country is experiencing shortages of water and crippling drought. The water challenges are caused by a number of issues. These include insufficient water infrastructure operations and maintenance, floods driven by climatic variation, and unequal access to water and sanitation. The COVID-19 has highlighted the connection between accessing water and exposure to illness, especially for people living in poverty. Members of this community, for instance, have not had access to clean water for years.
Since we've got the corona situation, and then we started to see people coming with the new tanks, installing them.
I'm next to the tap. But if I'm not around, it's difficult. But now I'm next to the tap. I make sure that I've got enough water before I go to job.
Following President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement for government to devise extraordinary measures to slow the spread of the virus, the Department of Water and Sanitation has made urgent interventions.
Our job is to make sure that everybody in South Africa, to the extent that it is possible, has access to clean water even if it is for a short term, as we build up our systems for a more sustainable future.
Needy communities from the length and breadth of the country are now benefiting from the distribution of water tanks that have been made available by government.
Right now, as of the time when COVID was on our shores, we had to make sure everybody has clean water to wash their hands. So we ordered all the water tanks that we could get, and we then decided to lease water tankers to put water. And we asked the municipalities to identify those places that where people would be most vulnerable or where people congregate, and they have done that. The reports that I've seen, the smiles that I've seen, indicates to me that we've made very good progress, and I'm very happy to see that.
These tanks will assist communities in water-stressed and densely populated areas to wash their hands to ward off the virus. Yulison Jomela for Switch to N in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And over to the Democratic Republic of Congo, people living with disabilities have been appealing to the government for assistance amid a partial lockdown. The coronavirus has disrupted economic activity and affected the livelihoods of thousands of vulnerable people across the country. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa reports.
Messages about the prevention of COVID-19 are common in the DRC capital, Kinshasa. The city has the most cases in the country. The government imposed a partial lockdown earlier this month and offered people free water and electricity for the next 2 months. But many communities on the outskirts of the city do not have access to clean water. That has made life difficult for people living with disabilities like Ngoi Kabea.
I'm asking our government to help us in this difficult time. President Tshisekedi should instruct his staff to provide us food and water because life has become unbearable. God will bless him for that.
Humanitarian agencies have been supporting the government to provide relief items to internally displaced people in conflict zones in eastern DRC. But many vulnerable people in Kinshasa are struggling on their own.
We've seen some people getting assistance from charity organizations during the lockdown, but we've not got any help. Why has our government neglected us?
Officials at the COVID-19 National Task Force say they are doing their best under the circumstances.
We have sensitized the country about the prevention and control of COVID-19 through the media, but we ask everyone to join us in spreading the message about hand washing and social distancing.
But that might not be enough for many. The DRC Constitution provides special protection for people living with disabilities, but many of them have faced discrimination and human rights abuses for decades. Not even the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that the government ratified in 2015 has greatly improved their lives, and now the COVID-19 pandemic has made their plight worse. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Children with disabilities may have underlying health conditions that increase their risk of serious complications from COVID-19. Leon Sinyanga reports on how these children in Uganda are coping.
The past 5 weeks have been testing for Tim Wanamama. He has Down syndrome, and coping with life during the coronavirus crisis has been tough.
The first 2 weeks, they were so bored, but after some time they coped up.
During school days, over 80 children play here. Tim now has only a handful to be with. Many of the children at this center were sent home. The few that stayed need extra attention, and the singing is helping them cope with the trying time. The caretakers here say the children miss their friends, but they are teaching them new things to keep them busy.
Their children, you have to be patient and understand them better. We do things and repeat repeatedly actually, compared to the ordinary children.
According to the World Child Organization UNICEF, Uganda has about 2.5 million children living with some form of disability. Authorities say parents and guardians need to help children understand the current challenge.
They are playing a role of many people. They are teachers, they are health workers, Because remember, many of those children, they have health-related challenges, many of them. They are social workers, they needed to keep counseling.
While it is still uncertain how soon the coronavirus crisis will end, for these children, their isolation is far from over. They must do whatever they can to get through. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Time now for the day's business news. We cross over to Rama for the latest.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in business. Commercial activity springs back to life in Nigeria's commercial capital after a 28-day lockdown. And we'll be in Tunisia. Authorities are acting to stem a rise in food prices.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Now, after nearly a full month of total lockdown, commercial activities have picked up pretty much from where they stopped in Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria. Authorities over there have eased lockdown restrictions on the city and at least 2 others. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus telling us how things are going.
The traffic jams are back, and so are business activities. Lagos had looked like a ghost city for almost 5 weeks that the lockdown lasted. But today, it's coming back to its bustling self. It's the early morning rush hour as commuters, most wearing face masks, wait for buses to convey them to their various destinations. But there's hardly any adherence to physical distancing requirements. Banks are probably one of the busiest today as customers stormed their premises to sort out all their pending transactions. Again, the crowd here is in clear breach of the city's guideline on physical distancing. This engineering firm has also opened its gates to its staff again. And for those resuming, they are delighted to rejoin their colleagues after what seemed like forever.
I count it to be a new era for every individual, even to myself. It's a new experience to what we have passed through. We have known the incident of not working and the business is being paralyzed. But now that everybody is at work, we could see that the business will move and the nation will experience a new change.
Elsewhere in the city, in these spare part retail shops, sales are yet to pick up. But the traders are optimistic, even though some are still very concerned about the easing of the lockdown.
It takes a little time for business to open up, because most people are still afraid. Somebody cannot jump into what he doesn't know. Do you understand me? Because if you contact this now, you're going to your family. It's a very dangerous disease, so you have to be careful. Opening right now with the rate of this number of COVID-19, I don't think that is right.
Everywhere across the city, the compliance with the use of face masks is high. But how to get people to maintain the 2-meter physical distance from one another, as required by the government's guideline, is obviously a challenge in a city as populated as Lagos and where markets are often jammed.
Most shops are closed. You have to have buying and selling. Someone have to come and buy, someone have to pay, you know? When you're paying, there's a transaction between you and the person that is buying. Automatically, the social distance, they will not work. I think what government should have done is should have not opening business properly as total opening. They suppose if you need something, you call. The person can come and attend to you.
For now, authorities say all business activities must end at 3 p.m., after which people are expected to head back home before the commencement of a daily curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So everyone is now rushing home to beat the curfew, but this is more like a test run
for the government. It could all change if there's a continued spike in the number of confirmed cases in this city, which is the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos.
In North Africa, Tunisia's National COVID-19 Monitoring Authority maintains that food prices will not be drastically raised during the Ramadan period. There have been complaints from citizens about rising inflation, which was triggered in part by supply chain disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's CGTN's Adin Chachi with the details.
Over 600 agents from the Economic Control Department at the Ministry of Trade have launched a large-scale operation to combat inflation in the holy month of Ramadan.
This is a sensitization and control campaign of the distribution channels for food, vegetables, white and red meat. We are targeting wholesale merchants and subsidized vegetable oil providers to ensure the availability of products and the stability of the prices.
Bread consumption has increased by 30% in the fasting month of Ramadan. Therefore, bakeries have not been spared from the control operation, which also aims to ensure that the sanitary measures imposed by the COVID-19 crisis unit are being respected.
We make sure that the bakery is not crowded. Some clients do not understand the importance of physical distancing to stop infections. Bread is available. There's no reason for panic buying.
Tunisian consumers have welcomed the authorities' presence at Ramadan markets, which they say deters some merchants from neglecting safety measures, as well as inflating prices.
The purchasing power is low. It's even lower due to the pandemic. The prices of many food products are high, and some merchants only respect the law when they see control agents. Otherwise, they don't care about consumers.
According to the Minister of Trade, the quantities of food and commodities seized in the first 4 weeks of the general lockdown as part of the control and anti-monopoly operations have far exceeded the volume confiscated during the entire year 2019. The Tunisian Prime Minister has stressed the importance of strengthening coordination between all ministries and state agencies to ensure sufficient market supply, stabilizing prices and the control of the distribution channels. Elias El-Fakhfakh also stressed the need to support low-income and vulnerable groups who have been affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, as this pandemic continues to spread right across Africa, families that rely heavily on diaspora remittances are finding it much harder to cover their daily expenses. Many, in fact, are saying they can no longer access funds from relatives in the United States, in Western Europe and parts of the Middle East, like the UAE, since most of those places are in various stages of lockdown. CGTN's Hilary Ayasiga filed this report.
Christine Nantambi is preparing lunch, but she's rationing the food because of a budget squeeze. Her father, based in South Africa, stopped sending money a month ago.
Ever since the lockdown got to Uganda, we've never received any money from him. Yeah, so all that we had, we used it.
The family has adjusted from having 3 meals to 1 meal a day. And they are not the only ones taking a hit from COVID-19. Lydia Luimbas is finding it hard to get help from her husband working in China.
He's not been working for now, and the places where he could reach and send money, they're no more. We cannot move.
Luimbas has been depending on remittances from China, but since the outbreak of COVID-19, that source of funding has since been cut off. She's now looking at her garden to put food on the table. Financial experts warn that the situation is likely to get worse as the virus continues to spread.
We know that a majority of Ugandans working in some of those countries are not documented. So they are not working. Many of them have actually fallen sick of COVID-19. We have received a lot of reports of many Ugandans who have fallen sick of COVID-19. They need to treat themselves. They cannot have enough money to spare to send to their relatives back in Uganda.
A recent report from the Bank of Uganda shows that remittances will fall from the projected $1.3 billion to $955 million by close of the 2019-2020 financial year. And the World Bank has also warned that global remittances will decline by 20% in 2020. But for Nantambi, not all hope is lost. She's hopeful that as major economies begin to ease restrictions, some people will soon get to work and remittances could flow again. Hilary Isga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
All right, then, I'll leave you there for the time being in that pint-sized segment of business. Here's what's coming up at the top of the hour. Sudan is planning to set up a gold bourse. The idea is to try and stabilize market prices and perhaps bring in some foreign currency earnings into the country as well. But will this actually work? We'll explore that and plenty more. See you at 1800 GMT. For now, back to Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. You're watching Africa Live, still ahead. Fashion with a touch of Africa. Find out how a Kenyan hair salon is innovating around coronavirus. Now, a hair salon in Kenya's largest slum, Kibera, has created a new spiky look called the coronavirus hairstyle. It's a brand new fashion statement against the spread of the disease. It's the latest example of how service industry workers are finding ways to appeal to others as stay-at-home rules and collapsing incomes reduce customer numbers.
Hakuna cha braids, hakuna cha salsa, hakuna cha wig, weave, ni coronavirus mama. Mali huko, kama mkushuke coronavirus.
Hii wakati wa coronavirus tunaathirika nayo. Hii style tunasuka, ndio tunashuka kwa wananchi, ndio rahisi kulingana maisha imekuwa ngumu duniani kulingana na hii janga la coronavirus. Na kila mtu mahali yuko ni kusanitize, kunawa mikono mara kwa mara, ndio tushinde hili jambo la coronavirus.
Corona imeleta shida, sasa mimi sina ile pesa ya kuwapeleka saluni washuke zile vitu za maana. Sasa ukiona hizi ni corona style, sasa mimi nimeona walete kwa saluni ishikilie tu nywele sababu uchumi nayo imekuwa ngumu sana.
Coming up in sports. Cote d'Ivoire forward Solomon Kalou suspended for breaching